Good morning or good evening, everyone, depending on where you are in the world. My name's John Gattorna. I'm a partner in the supply chain thought leadership advisory firm based in Sydney, Australia. And I know this message is going out from our friends in Emphasis, Ecumex in Mexico, and I hope you enjoy some of the comments. I think starting off, what I would say is that right now with the current crisis, the COVID-19 crisis that has enveloped us, we have a once in a generation or a once in a lifetime opportunity to make some fundamental change to the way we design our supply chains. Supply chains are pervasive in our lives, and the good news coming out of the current crisis is that more and more people now understand that we do depend on them. If you look back over the last 50 years in particular, you can see that there have been a number of crises. We had the SARS crisis, we had the GFC, we had, I think around 2000, the dot-com, and of course now with the COVID. So we're getting major disruptions, and I think now's the time to finally come to grips with redesigning our supply chains in a fundamentally different way. The other thing is that I would say, and this is something that we've been saying for quite a while but not really picked up by a lot of the other commentators, is that supply chains are really socio-technical systems with a huge emphasis on the people factor. In supply chains, we've got people at the customer end, we've got them at the supplier end, and of course we've got them inside our own businesses. And I would argue that 50 to 60% at least of the activity that goes on in supply chains, enterprise supply chains, is really to do with people and their behaviour and decision making. And we've got to appreciate that and not expect that that everything is driven by technology. Digitalisation now, of course, end to end is very important, but it's an enabler. I think the thing we've got to appreciate too is that as we start transforming our supply chains, we've got to appreciate that when you're transforming the supply chains, because it's so pervasive, we are effectively transforming the entire business. Because if you take the broadest definition of what's in a supply chain, I would say that you've got 80% of the fixed assets of a firm, or the fixed capital of a firm is tied up in supply chain assets, and around 65% of the working capital in inventory and other things. So really it's coming down to understanding that when we talk about supply chain, we're not just talking about the function, the people in the particular function that do the work. We are talking about a philosophy that cuts across the firm, and everyone has to be engaged in that. We can't say, or people in sales and marketing can't say we're not in the supply chain. They are. All the functions are in the supply chain, and we all contribute to it as the product flows across the firm. The other thing I'd say is that this crisis has shown it to be true, is that the supply chain is now creeping up to become more influential than sales and marketing. And I say that because it has not only an impact on the cost line of the firm, but it's now influencing the top line, and it does that through looking at customer satisfaction. The mess that we're in now, of course, is because we've been relentlessly pursuing this idea of lowest cost, and globalization, of course, has encouraged that, and we've had procurement people who have been looking for the cheapest, best source, and it's led us to rely too heavily on single sourcing. And I think one of the things we're going to have to do now is to reverse that and come back along the continuum and look not only at the cost situation, but look at our capacity to recover from interruptions. So we've got to seriously re-architect our supply chains, and we think a sort of multiple supply chain format, more or less 4 or 5 different configurations inside the firm to cover or to service at least 80% of our market, and align with that market is the way to go. And we want to do that so in such a way that we get a more precise alignment with our customers, and we get rid of the over-servicing and under-servicing that's been going on in the firm. And as I said earlier, the supply side has also got to become a major function or a major area that we look at again, because we've got to start looking at our suppliers in the same way that we should be looking at our customers and look at the differences between them. So the going forward, the emphasis will be on segmenting our customers, understanding their expectations, and then reverse engineering back. We think ultimately we'll have a situation where it'll be a combination of an underlying lean platform inside our businesses, and sitting on top of those there will be collaborative supply chains, maybe lean again, agile campaign, and there may well be a separate supply chain completely separate from that, which we call the fully flexible, to service the major disruptions going forward. So in the end, it comes down to leadership and creativity. We want to see a lot more of that going forward as we think about our supply chains. Both of these are human factors, and this just reinforces the fact that supply chains are actually largely driven by people. If you need more information about the things I'm talking about, you can have a look at these two books. This was the 2015 book, Dynamic Supply Chains. There's a lot of detail in that. For those of you who want a shorter read, this is our most recent book, 2020, Transforming Supply Chains. I think you'll get a lot of very interesting information out of that. It's very readable, and both of these books, Dynamic Supply Chains and Transforming Supply Chains, are available on Amazon. Thank you.